Chapter 15, Part 2. Now will you tell us where you've been? John Leyden asks. Did you really meet the great Powhatan? I ask. Can't a man get breakfast before he has to give an oration? Captain Smith says. Richard and I find the half-full barrel of corn and cook up a large pot of hominy. After breakfast, we keep the common cook fire going so we can warm ourselves while Captain Smith tells his story. Most of the common men come to listen. The gentlemen are again nowhere to be seen. Are they off sulking like scolded dogs, I wonder, or hatching a new plan? But once Captain Smith begins his story, I don't give the gentleman another thought. 200 savages came upon me, he says. They captured me and took me prisoner. They paraded me from one village to another, and at each village there were ceremonies and dancing, with dancers painted red and black like fearsome devils. And there was feasting, lots of feasting. I was sure that as soon as I was fat enough for their liking, they would kill me and eat me. I thought the Powhatans were not cannibals, I blurt out. Captain Smith shakes his head. I didn't think so, but why else were they fattening me up? He raises his eyebrows at me. Finally, I was taken to the village of Werawaccomoco. I was presented to Wanasanakok, the great Powhatan himself. He sat on a throne covered with a large robe made of raccoon skins with the tails still on. All around him sat his court, upwards of 200 men and women, their faces and shoulders painted red, and crowns of white bird feathers on their heads. They had another feast, and then 2 large stones were brought and placed in front of Chief Powhatan. Captain Smith pantomimes, lifting 2 heavy stones. Suddenly, 7 or 8 warriors jumped up from their seats and seized me. They dragged me over and forced my head down on one of the stones. 3 warriors stood over me with heavy clubs. They raised the clubs, ready to bash my brains out. I suck in my breath. Henry looks at me and rolls his eyes. Well, he didn't get his brains bashed out, now did he? He says. I glare at Henry and go back to listening. There was no way for me to escape with so many men holding me down. I could not even move, Captain Smith says. I prepared to die. We are silent, waiting for the next turn in the story. Suddenly, I hear the voice of a child begging for my life to be spared, but Chief Powhatan refused the request. He declared, no, the Englishman will die. Then I saw who had been speaking. It was a little girl about 9 or 10 years old. She came running over to me. She ignored the warriors with their raised clubs. She gathered my head in her arms and laid down her own head down over mine. The warriors could not strike a blow now without hitting her first. We are amazed by what we have heard. After a moment, Henry breaks the silence. I don't believe it, he says. You made it all up, you did. Captain Smith is on his feet in a second. He catches Henry up by the front of his shirt. That little girl has more courage than you will ever have, and don't you ever call me a liar again. Henry cowers. Yes, sir, he says. I want the story to continue, but just then President Ratcliffe, Master Martin, Master Archer, and a few of the other gentlemen come crowding into our circle. Several of them grab Captain Smith and hold him fast. We are too stunned to do anything. What is going on here? Captain Smith bellows. He thrashes at the men, but they jerk his arms behind his back, tie his hands together, and clamp chains around his ankles. Stop this, John Leyden cries. He lifts his musket, but it is beaten out of his hands by Master Archer. Watch yourself, or you'll face the gallows as well, Master Archer warns. The gallows? You are under arrest, Master Archer announces. The law of Leviticus states an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, a life for a life. You are responsible for the deaths of Thomas Emery and Jehu Robinson, as they were in your care. You will pay for those deaths with your life. Your execution will be at sunup tomorrow. Captain Smith struggles, but he is tied so tightly, hand and foot, that he can hardly move. You're mad, he cries. There is no English law that makes me responsible for those deaths. But the gentlemen don't listen. They drag him away, his chains clanking. Rage bubbles up inside me. Without thinking, I snatch up a rock and hurl it straight at the back of Master Archer's head. Master Archer howls. He grabs his bleeding scalp and turns to look at us. I stand there, seething with anger. I feel the old urges, the desire to punch and rip, to see blood before my fury is spent. Captain Smith's voice speaks in my head. Learn to channel your anger, Samuel, and it will become your strength rather than your weakness. I know what they're doing, Henry is saying. They'll kill Captain Smith, and then they'll go ahead and sail away and leave us to starve. Channel my anger? No. I can't stop myself. I run at Master Archer. I will knock him down and pummel the snot out of him.